the world in Rizal's time.
In the 19th century, Spain invested heavily in education. Through the Stable-Escoman system, which was established in 1863, more people were able to learn Spanish. Another reason why more people were able to study in Spain was the opening of the canal. During the 19th century, various infrastructure projects were undertaken in preparation for the country's economic boom. These included the construction of the Puente de Claveria and Manila tram system. The rise in demand for textile fibers such as abaca and indigo has created a money supply that is growing. This led to the creation of the bank. Colonial governance was seen as a model of how to run a society. In all of Asia, except China, the colonial rule brought an improvement in standard of living and in particular, wealth and civilization. These inhabitants of these islands may well have lived comfortably during the last century, sheltered from all external enemies and governed by mild laws. When the paternal rule was replaced by an inept bureaucracy, the people were as happy as a community could be. The revenue doubled, the population greatly increased, and the farming was extended. The first census in the Philippines was conducted in 1878. It revealed that the country's population was 5,567,685 persons at the end of that year. By 1900s, the Philippines was already second in terms of gross domestic product. In 1872, three Filipino priests, Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, known as Gamborza, were accused of sedition and execution. The event inspired a revolutionary movement in Spain. Its leaders were identified by the works of literary giant Jose Rizal. The Katipunan was a secret society formed by Andres Bonifacio. Its goal was to overthrow the Spanish monarchy in the Philippines. An early flag of the revolution was unveiled in 1896. The conflicts between Fidel Aguinaldo and Bonifacio led to the execution or murder of the latter. As a result of the conflicts, his fellow revolutionary leaders were exiled to Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. Aguinaldo and Bonifacio's ship conflicts eventually led to the assassination of the latter. In 1898, the USS Maine, which was sent to Cuba to aid in the safety of its citizens, exploded and sunk in Havana Harbor. This event led to the Spanish-American War. After Spain left the Philippines, the German emperor expected the Americans to lose. Thus, Aguinaldo was invited back to the country. In 1898, the revolutionary government led by Aguinaldo was not recognized by the family of nations. As a result, the US decided to annex the Philippines. During the Spanish era, the archipelago grew and developed due to the introduction of various Western elements such as irrigation, farming, and engineering. By 1898, the Philippines was regarded as one of the most advanced nations in Asia.
He was a physician, poet, dramatist, historian, novelist, architect, traveler, businessman, prophet, and many more. Above and beyond all of this, he was a hero and a political martyr who consecrated his life for the redemption of his oppressed people. No wonder he is now acclaimed as a national hero of the Philippines. Jose Protasio Rizal Mercado y Alonso Reyalonda, also known as Dr. Jose Rizal, is a unique example of a man in splendor genius who became the greatest hero of a nation. The birth of a hero. Jose Rizal was born on June 19, 1861 in the lakeshore town of Calamba, Laguna Province, Philippines. Baptized in a Catholic church on June 22, aged 3 years old, by a parish priest. The name Jose was chosen by his mother, who was a devotee of the Christian saint San Jose. Francisco Mercado Rizal, the hero's father, born on May 11, 1818 at Binyan, Laguna. The Teodora Alonso Realunda, the hero's mother, born in November 8, 1826 at Manila. Jose Rizal was the seventh of the 11 children of their parents. Oldest is Saturnina, followed by Pasiano, who joined the Philippine Revolution after his young brother's execution. Narcisa, a school teacher of Morong. Olympia, a telegraph operator. Lucia, Maria, Concepcion, Josefa, Trinidad, and Soledad. Sibling relationship among the Rizal children was affectionately cordial. Jose Rizal had many beautiful memories of childhood in his native town. He grew up in a happy home, ruled by good parents, bubbling with joy, and sanctified by God's blessings. Because he was a frail, sickly, and undersized child, he was given the tenderness care by his parents. At the age of 3, he began to take part in the family prayers. He loved to go to church, to pray, to take part in novenas, and to join the religious processions. When he was 5 years old, he was able to read haltingly the Spanish family Bible. And at the age of 8, Rizal wrote his first poem in the native language entitled Sa Aking Mga Kababata. After writing a poem, he wrote his first dramatic work, which was a Tagalog melody. Since early manhood, Rizal had been interested in magic. With his dexterous hands, he learned various tricks such as making coin appear or disappear in his fingers. Rizal had his early education in Calamba and Binyan, characterized by the 4 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic, and religion. The first teacher of our hero Rizal was his mother, who was a remarkable woman of good character and fine culture. As Jose grew older, his parents employed private tutors to give him lessons at home. An old man named Leon Monroy, a former classmate of Rizal's father, became the boy's tutor. Unfortunately, he did not live long. After Monroy's death, the hero's parents decided to send their gifted child to a private school in Binyan. In academic studies, Jose beat all Binyan boys. He surpassed them all in Spanish, Latin, and other subjects. Before the Christmas season in 1870, Jose received a letter from his sister Saturnina informing him of the arrival of the steamer Taal, which would take him from Binyan to Calamba. He left Binyan on Saturday afternoon, December 17, 1870, after 1 year and a half of schooling in that town. Before June of 1872, Doña Teodora was suddenly arrested on a malicious charge that she and her brother Jose Alberto tried to poison the latter's perfidious wife. Jose Alberto, a rich Binyan ilustrado, had just returned from a business trip in Europe. During his absence, his wife abandoned their home and children. When he arrived in Binyan, he found her living with another man. Infuriated by her infidelity, he planned to divorce her. But Doña Teodora, to avoid family scandal, persuaded his brother to forgive his wife. The family trouble was amicably settled, and Jose Alberto lived again with his wife. However, the evil wife, with the connivance of the Spanish lieutenant of the Guardia Civil, filed a case in court accusing her husband and Doña Teodora of attempting to poison her. 4 months after the martyrdom of Gomburza and with Doña Teodora still in prison, Jose had not yet celebrated his 11th birthday. He was sent to Manila accompanied by his brother Pasiano on June 10, 1872. His father, who first wished him to study at Letran, changed his mind and decided to send him at Ateneo instead. On his first day of class in Ateneo, being a newcomer and knowing a little Spanish, Rizal was placed at the bottom of the class. After the first week, the frail Calamba boy progressed rapidly. At the end of the month, he became emperor. Doña Teodora told her son of her dream. Rizal, interpreting the dream, told her that she would be released from prison in 3 months' time. And Rizal's prophecy became true. His mother was set free after 3 months. By that time, Rizal was already in Manila attending his classes at Ateneo. In his last year in Ateneo, he obtained the highest grades in all subjects: philosophy, physics, biology, chemistry, languages, mineralogy, etc., and graduated with highest honor. Rizal's works in Ateneo were poem and sculpture. He carved an image of the Virgin Mary on a piece of batikuling, Philippine hardwood, with his pocket knife. The first poem Rizal probably wrote during his days in the Ateneo was Mi Primera Inspiración, which was dedicated to his mother on her birthday. Although Rizal was merely a teenager, he had a very high regard for education. During his student days, Rizal expressed his devotion to his Catholic faith in melodious poetry. Shortly after his graduation from the Ateneo, Rizal was then 16 years old, experienced his first romance, that painful experience which comes to nearly all adolescents. The girl was named Segunda Katigbak, a pretty 14-year-old Batangueña from Lipa. His old grandmother was a friend of the Katigbak family of Lipa. But it was a hopeless romantic since the very beginning because Segunda was already engaged to be married to her townmate Manuel Luz. He remained in Calamba, a frustrated lover, cherishing nostalgic memories of a lost love.
Chapter 5 is all about the medical studies at University of Santo Tomas. Doña Teodora opposed the idea of sending Rizal to university to pursue higher education because she was aware what happened to Gombo Rizal and feared of what would happen to Rizal. And Rizal was surprised by his mother's opposition, who was a woman of education and culture. Despite her mother's opposition, Don Francisco told Pasiano to accompany Rizal to Manila. In April 1877, Rizal enrolled at UST, taking the course on philosophy and letters, and the reasons were his father liked it and he was still uncertain as to what career to pursue. And in 1877 to 1878, Rizal studied cosmology, metaphysics, theodicy, and history of philosophy during his first year term. And in 1877 to 1879, Rizal took up medical course upon the advice of Ateneo's rector to study medicine, and the only reason was to be able to cure his mother's growing blindness. While Rizal was studying at UST, he also studied in Ateneo, and he took the vocational course leading to the title of Perito Agrimensor, or the expert surveyor. And he also excelled in all subjects in the surveying course, obtaining gold medals in agriculture and topography. And at the age of 17, he passed the final exam in the surveying course but could not be granted the title of surveyor because he was underage. In romance with other girls, we all know that Segunda Katigbak was his first love. Second is Miss L. Third is Leonor Orang Valenzuela. And the fourth one is Leonor Rivera. One dark summer vacation night of 1878 in Calamba, when Rizal was a freshman medical student at the University of Santo Tomas. He was walking in the street and dimly perceived the figure of a man while passing him, not knowing that the person was a lieutenant of the Guardia Civil. He did not salute, not say a greetings. To the Filipino youth, Liceo Artístico Literano, or the Artistic Literary Lyceum, they held a literary contest and offered a prize for best poem a la Juventud Filipina, or to the Filipino youth. Artistic Literary Lyceum opened another literary contest to commemorate the 4th centennial of the death of Cervantes. Cervantes was a Spain's glorified man of letters and famous author of Don Quixote. Then Rizal submitted an allegorical drama entitled El Consejo de los Dioses, or the Council of the Gods. In summer of May 1881, Rizal went to a pilgrimage to the town of Pagil, famous shrine of the Virgen Maria de los Dolores, and he was accompanied by his sisters Saturnina, Maria, and Trinidad and their female friends. They took a casco from Calamba to Paquil, Laguna, and stayed at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Manuel Regalado, whose son Nicolas was Rizal's friend in Manila. In the championship of Filipino students, Rizal was the champion of the Filipino students in their fights against the arrogant Spanish students. And in 1880, Rizal founded a secret society of Filipino students in the University of Santo Tomas called Compañerismo or Comradeship, whose members were called Companions of Jehu, after the valiant Hebrew general who fought the Armenians. For the unhappy days at the UST, the Dominican were hostile to him. The Filipino students were racially discriminated by the Spaniards, and the method of instructions was obsolete and repressive, which results Rizal, the most brilliant graduate of Ateneo, failed to win high scholastic grade. After finishing the 4th year of his medical course, Rizal decided to study in Spain because he could no longer endure the rampant bigotry, discrimination, and hostility in the University of Santo Tomas. And he did not seek his parents' permission and blessings to go abroad, and even his beloved Leonor. On May 3, 1882, Rizal left Manila and went to Spain to observe keenly the life and culture, languages and customs, industries and commerce, and governments and laws of the European nations, to prepare himself in the mighty task of liberating his oppressed people from Spanish tyranny. His departure in Spain was kept secret to avoid detection by Spanish authorities and the friars. His parents don't even know because he knows that his mother won't allow him to go. And before his secret departure, he wrote a farewell letter to his parents and to his sweetheart, Leonor Rivera. During the voyage to Singapore, he carefully observed the people and things on board the steamer. To remove or ease his boredom, Rizal played chess with his fellow passengers who were older than him, and because he was good at chess, he defeated them all. Then the Salvadora reached the English colony of Singapore on May 9. Rizal logged in Hotel de la Paz for 2 days. By conversing daily with the French passengers during his travel from Singapore to Colombo, he was able to improve his knowledge of different languages, and he delightfully scribbled on his diary, "Colombo is more beautiful, smart, and elegant than Singapore, White Galley, and Manila." For the first time, Rizal cited the barren coast of Africa, which he called an inhospitable but famous, and at Port Said, the Mediterranean terminal of Suez Canal, Rizal landed in order to see the interesting sights. June 11, Rizal reached Naples, an Italian city, and Rizal was fascinated by Mount Vesuvius and Castle of St. Elmo. Then he visited Chatou, where Dantes, hero of the Count of Monte Cristo, was imprisoned. His first impression of Barcelona was unfavorable. He thought that it was ugly, with dirty little inns and inhospitable residents. Then later, he changed his bad impression and he found it to be really a great city. Rizal wrote Amor Patrio, or Love of Country, in Barcelona. This is a nationalistic essay written in Spanish soil under the pseudonym of Dimas Alam, and it was published in two texts, which is the Spanish, written by Rizal, and in Filipino, written by Marcelo H. del Pilar. While sojourning in Barcelona, Rizal received sad news about the cholera that was ravaging in Manila and the provinces. During his life in Madrid, Rizal enrolled in the Universidad Central de Madrid, or the Central University of Madrid, in two courses, which is the Medicine and Philosophy and Letters. For his romance with Consuelo could blossom to a serious affair, he suddenly backed out for two reasons. First is he was still engaged to Leonor Rivera, and his friend and co-worker in the propaganda movement, Eduardo de Lete, was madly in love with Consuelo, and he no wished to break their friendship because of a pretty girl. In 1882, after his arrival in Madrid, he joined the Círculo Hispano-Filipino, or the Hispano-Philippine Circle, a society of Spaniards and Filipinos, and wrote a poem entitled Me Piden Versos, or They Asked Me for Verses. Rizal was also a lover of books and was deeply affected by Little Chess Stalls, Uncle Tom's Cabin, and Eugene Sue's The Wandering Jew. When Rizal's first visit to Paris, he was mistaken by the Parisians as a Japanese, and the prices of food, drinks, theater, tickets, laundry, hotel accommodations, and transportations were too high for his slender purse. To that, he commented in a letter to his family that Paris is the costliest capital in Europe. He transferred to Lodge Solidaridad in Madrid, where he became a master mason on November 15, 1890. After his departure for Spain, things turned from bad to worse in Calamba. The harvest of rice and sugarcane failed on account of drought and locusts, and the manager of the Dominican-owned hacienda increased the rentals of the lands cultivated by the Rizal family. And due to hard times in Calamba, the monthly allowances of Rizal in Madrid were late in arrival, and there were times when they never arrived, causing much suffering to him. Speaking in Serranos Castilian, Rizal held his audience spellbound. He saluted Luna and Hidalgo as the two glories of Spain and the Philippines, whose artistic achievements transcended geographically frontiers and racial origins, for genius is universal. When Rizal involved in student demonstrations in November 20 to 22, 1884, the serene city of Madrid exploded in bloody riots by the students of the Central University that were caused by the address of Dr. Moraita. At long last, he completed his studies in Spain, and by obtaining the degree of licentiate in philosophy and letters, he is qualified to be a professor of humanities in any Spanish university. Maximo Viola is a medical student from San Miguel, Bulacan. Second is Senor Eusebio Corominas, is the editor-in-chief of the newspaper La Publicidad. Third is Don Miguel Moraita, the owner of La Publicidad, and Dr. Luis de Weckert, leading French ophthalmologist where Rizal worked as an assistant. Rizal has no natural aptitude for music, and this he admitted. He only studied music because many of his schoolmates at Ateneo were taking music lessons. In February 1, 1886, Rizal left Gay Paris for Germany, and in February 3, 1886, he arrived in Heidelberg. In the spring of 1886, Rizal was fascinated by the blooming flowers along the cool banks of the Neckar River, and his favorite flower was the light blue forget-me-not. And on April 22, 1886, he wrote a fine poem, A las Flores de Heidelberg, or To the Flowers of Heidelberg. After writing To the Flowers of Heidelberg, Rizal spent a 3-month summer vacation at Wilhelmsfeld, a mountainous village near Heidelberg. He stayed at the vicarage of a kind Protestant pastor, which is Dr. Karl Ulmer, who became his good friend and admirer. On July 31, 1886, Rizal wrote his first letter in German to Professor Ferdinand Blumentritt, director of the Ateneo of Leitmeritz, Austria. And with Rizal's letters from Heidelberg impressed Blumentritt, who reciprocated by sending Rizal a gift of 2 books. It marked the beginning of their long and frequent correspondence, also of their friendship that lasted all their lives. It was 3 days before his departure when the famous University of Heidelberg held its 5th centenary celebration on August 6, 1886, and he was sad because he had come to love the beautiful city. Rizal arrived in Leipzig on August 14, 1886, and attended lectures at the university on history and psychology, and he befriended Professor Friedrich Ratzel, a German historian, and Dr. Hans Meyer, a German anthropologist. Rizal was enchanted by Berlin because of its scientific atmosphere and the absence of race prejudice. Dr. Fyodor Jagor is a German scientist, traveler, and author of travels in the Philippines. Second is Dr. Rodolf Virchow, a famous German anthropologist. Dr. Jost is a German geographer, and Dr. Karl Ernest Schwecker is a famous ophthalmologist. He lived in the famous capital of the unified Germany for 5 reasons. First is to gain further knowledge of ophthalmology. Second, to further his knowledge or studies of science and languages. Third is to observe the economic and political conditions on the German nations. fourth, to associate with famous German scientists and scholars. And last one is to publish his novel, Noli Me Tangere. He took private lessons under Madame Lucie Zerdol, professor of French. Rizal wrote a letter addressed to her sister Trinidad, expressing his high regard and admiration for German womanhood. The German women are serious, diligent, educated, and friendly. For the Spanish women, they are gossipy, frivolous, and quarrelsome. And for the Filipino women, they are more interested in how they dress than how much they know. They have fine manners, their devotion, and German costumes. He was delighted of the German's Yuletide costume, wherein people take pine trees from the bushes and adorn it with lanterns, paper, lights, dolls, candies, and fruits. For the self-introduction to strangers in a social gathering, according to German code of etiquette, it is bad manners for a guest to remain aloof and wait for his host to make the proper introduction. The last topic is Rizal's darkest winter. The winter of 1886 was his darkest winter. He lived in poverty. Rizal starved in Berlin and shivered with winter cold because the diamond ring was in the pawn shop and could not pay his landlord, screamed, eating only one meal a day, and clothes are old and threadbare and washed them himself.